The Semi-Retired Real Estate Agent. Authored by Brandon DeVere. Narrated by Edward Cullen. Why was this book written, and who is it for? Today, as I write this book, my very first book, it is March 18, 2020. We are in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, and yesterday here in Las Vegas, we were told that the city was basically going to be shut down for 30 days. Today, my wife was let go from her job. Many across the nation and world are feeling some of the same effects. And moving forward, we will all have the ability to choose in which direction we will go. For myself, I realized that I really had two options. Number one, I could choose to lay my head down and take the beating currently being applied and say, why me? Or number two, I could choose to keep my head up and identify a way to lessen the impact should something like this happen again. I decided to choose option two and write a book that I could share with others to help them weather future storms themselves, with strategies used by top producers that most agents don't even know about. I'm talking about a game changer for real estate agents. I'm talking about a way to get real estate agents to start thinking like business owners, rather than thinking like employees in their business. I chose to write this book for those agents who have been focusing on the short-term mindset of just selling more homes, and that's keeping them on the commission hamster wheel. I hope to give them a glimpse into their future should they subscribe to an owner mentality and play the long game. If you are tired of being just an employee in your own business and want to start being the owner of your business, while having the opportunity to become a semi-retired real estate agent, this book was written for you. Chapter 1. To me, legacy is paramount. It's October 23, 1999, just before 11 a.m. The sun is out, yet it's still cold enough in our hometown of Cle Elum, Washington that we can see our breath. I had just turned 18 a couple of months earlier and had graduated from high school the previous June. I find myself with my sister and father as we make our way through a parking lot full of cars into a church packed to capacity, standing room only. We're being directed to the front row. After the service, we are the first to exit the church. As we walk slowly, arm in arm, I see the faces of an entire community. The community I grew up in, sharing in our grief and sadness. Our aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends. Even teachers that my older sister and I both had, as well as colleagues of my father, are there. This crowd is made up of generations of people who have known my family for what seems like forever. As we turn left to finally exit the church, I look up and see Mike. His son, Eric, is one of my best friends to this day, and has been since we were 6, when we met and became teammates in T-ball, and playing in the tree fort in his backyard every chance we got. Mike looks at me and doesn't say a word. He just reaches out with his right hand to shake mine and covers it with his left in a gesture that gives me comfort. He nods and has a look in his eyes that says, "We got you." My sister, father, and I continued to go outside, but now the parking lot is full of not only cars, but people too. The people who couldn't get in because the church couldn't hold them all. As strange as this may sound, I cannot help but smile when I think of that day. If you haven't figured it out yet, this was the day of my mother Sherry's funeral. You might be asking yourself, why is this a day that makes him smile? I'll tell you why. But first, a little about my mom. She was loving and caring and made the best banana bread I've ever had. She would start running a bath for me halfway through a Lassie episode because she knew I was going to cry. I still to this day have no idea why that show made me cry. She spent her entire life in this small community and became known as a person of trust. She had a passion for children, not only her own, but for all children. She ran a daycare for years where she took care of my sister and I, as well as many other kids from our town. After I was old enough to go to school, she decided that she would like to work at the elementary school. She was not a teacher, but more of a teacher's aide, and she cared primarily for the special needs students. She had a handful of special needs kids that she worked with daily, but there were two whom she really grew fond of. The first was Clayton. Clayton had Down syndrome and was very fond of my mom. They would have celebrations together where they would eat cheese and drink Pepsi. It was Clayton's favorite thing to do with her, and she looked forward to it just as much as he did. They cleverly named this party the Cheese and Pepsi Party. She loved Clayton. Another of her favorites was Brandon. They enjoyed going on walks together, and she seemed to be able to calm him when he would get upset. He also had Down syndrome, but was affected by Tourette syndrome as well. One day, as she was working with Brandon, he was unable to control himself, and my mom was struck in the jaw. After this, she would eventually need surgery. A couple of years later, she started to experience signs of Alzheimer's disease. She began forgetting things in one place, imagining things in another, even seeing things that weren't there at all. This was the beginning of the end for her. The next 6 years, we watched her slowly fade away. She loved Brandon as much as Clayton, and quite honestly, as much as her own children. If there was a way to ask her if she still loves Brandon, I would bet everything I own on her saying that yes, absolutely. No grudges. She wouldn't have any part of that. I recently had a discussion with a man who had told me, "You can never outgive the universe." He went on to explain to me that if you continually give and give, yet do not expect anything in return, the universe will give back tenfold. He also went on to say that it may not come back as money as many people would wish, and there is even a good chance you may not realize what or how it comes back, but it will definitely come back to you. I choose to believe that the love my mother had and gave for the special needs children, the children of the community and the community itself, has come back tenfold, and that my father, my sister, and myself are the beneficiaries of her selflessness. Now, why this day makes me smile. What I had realized during this day was the impact that my mother had on this community. Such an impact that we didn't have to cook or go to the grocery store for over a month because our community was making sure we were taken care of. Even to this day, we get cookies and other gifts that are dropped off at my dad's house during Christmas because of her. It has been over 20 years. She had such an impact that my friend's dad, Mike, made it a point to let me know I was taken care of. And the most amazing part, that he wasn't the only one. My sister and I were fortunate enough to be honorary siblings in multiple families that were happy to call us one of them. With so much support from the community and our many families, all three of us have never had to worry about not having someone be there for us. My mother's passing didn't leave a bunch of money, land, or possessions that many families end up fighting over. What it did do was validate the sizable impact she had on an entire community and told the story of her legacy without ever putting pen to paper. She wasn't writing her legacy. She was living it. Although my mother is gone, and in my opinion too early, she is still teaching me to this day. Will my kids, friends, and family remember how many homes I've sold? Or even how much money I made? Probably not. But they will remember my legacy, good or bad. And the best part is, I get to write it, not just on paper, but with my actions. 20 years later, my mother is still teaching me that legacy is paramount. Now, why would I share such a personal story with you? Well, because this is what drives me. Legacy. I wanted to build a legacy, and just selling homes was not the way I was going to do it. When I'm gone, my kids, friends, and family aren't going to care about how many homes I've sold, and honestly, they probably won't even know how many. But what they will know is how many lives I've positively impacted along the journey. And that is what drives me. Chapter 2. After all, I'm a teacher. Now that you know why legacy is so important to me, I want to tell you one of the ways I plan to build this legacy. You see, I've always loved to teach. Learning something new and sharing it with others is a great feeling. This probably comes from the fact that my dad was a school teacher, and growing up in a school teacher's home, I'm sure his passion rubbed off on me. When I was younger, I thought I'd like to be a school teacher, but after watching the agony my dad would go through year after year, essentially being a glorified babysitter, I just decided it wasn't for me. Even though I didn't want to teach in a school environment, I still had a passion for sharing knowledge and ideas. What I learned, I wanted to share with others. I couldn't keep this knowledge to myself. I've actually created a podcast called Learn for Two with this exact premise in mind. I sought to learn about different topics and ideas with the intent that I would eventually teach those concepts to others. This way, not only did I learn things twice, but I was able to share them with others who might be able to benefit from it as well. When I found out that being a real estate agent basically meant that I'd be my own boss, I got very excited. I would get to use my knowledge and creativity and share my ideas, helping others along the way. What really happened was, my ideas got shot down. Over and over and over again. All of them. Instead, I was told to smile and dial, and every no was closer to a yes. I was told to be a telemarketer, to get out there and start knocking on doors. Be sure to bug your friends and family, your sphere of influence, until they don't talk to you anymore. Essentially, I was told that I had to become something that I hated. And, well, I hated it. I hated me. It wasn't too long until I stopped doing all of those things that made me despise myself and started searching for a better way. A better way to do business, a better way to treat people, a better way to live life. I needed a better way. And I knew that my passion for teaching, passed down from my father, would play a major role in what I was in search of and how I could share it when I found it. Now that I've found it, I'm on a mission to teach, share, inspire, and uplift others in hopes I can get them to do the same. After all, I'm a teacher. Chapter 3. How did I get into real estate? Isn't it funny how most people get into real estate as a profession? I don't remember any of my friends growing up and saying, you know what I want to be when I grow up? A real estate agent. Most agents I come across have a similar story. They got into real estate as an afterthought. The truth is, I'm no different. I was a 24-year-old hookah boy. Yes, that was my actual title. I loaded bowls for a living. I'm sure my dad must have been so proud. Every Friday night, a real estate agent would come in, and he would sit at his favorite corner booth. Every time I brought him his hookah, he would ask me, "Hey, Brandon, you think you could pass a real estate exam? If you can, I'll take you under my wing and you'll make six figures effortlessly." "Sure, as long as I study for it," I said. Initially, I didn't pay much attention to him. Anyone who leads with a pitch like, You'll make six figures effortlessly. I tend not to take very seriously. But after about the fifth time of him asking, I took it as a challenge. Hell yes, I can pass that test. At first, even though I took it as a challenge, I wasn't really committed to the studying part. In fact, I failed the test the first two times that I took it. I'm a pretty competitive person, so this made me a little angry. So, finally, I got pissed off and told myself, "You're passing it this time." I scheduled my third test for 7 a.m., and I wasn't off until 2 a.m., so I went straight home, studied until 6 a.m., and then I headed for the testing center. I crushed it. Real estate exam passed. I thought I should have done this sooner. I'll be honest, the reason I became a real estate agent was to make money, and with a baby on the way, I needed it. We needed it. As I entered the real estate world, I would get hit with a hard truth right out of the gate. I would be promised the world with little follow-through from those who made those promises. I saw that agent maybe 3 more times in my life. Then he was gone. I actually forgot about him until a few months ago when I saw his name in the news for having a fraudulent car sales operation. It's probably better I didn't get in too deep with him. After moving on from him, I went from broker to broker and promise to promise, all of which were unfulfilled. I was constantly told, we got leads, we got training, we got tools, we got. All empty promises. I got nothing. It turns out brokers were just happy to have a warm body paying a desk fee. And the worst part about the old brokerages was they kept me thinking like a real estate agent, not a business owner, not an entrepreneur. By thinking like just a real estate agent, I was constantly bound by the chains of my next deal, keeping me bound to the brokerage. If I didn't have any sales in the pipeline, well, then my family didn't eat. We go hungry. And on top of that, there was no real exit strategy. Am I really going to be holding open houses when I'm 60 years old? And on top of that, I also suffered from what I like to call vacation intimidation. I know I'm not the only agent that has experienced that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. When you realize that you no longer have real vacations, because if you do, your business will suffer. You are either spending your time doing business and following up with leads and ignoring your family and friends, or you lose out on your business because you quit prospecting. Now you're playing catch up from what you missed out on while spending time with your family. This exact thing happened to me a couple years ago. We went with another family to spend a couple days in Los Angeles. We decided that we would go to Knott's Berry Farm. I spent the entire day putting out fires on a couple of deals that I had working. I would be standing in line, waiting to get on a ride with the kids, and our families chatting and having a good time, but I was buried in my phone. Not once, but twice, I got lost in the park because I was looking down, responding to an email, while everyone else made their way to the next ride. They had a great time, but I definitely wasn't contributing to the experience. At that time, I realized I needed to change. I needed something better. I realized if I was going to ever have a real vacation again, I would have to do something different. I needed to either step up and run my own team, or I needed to run my own brokerage. With my sights set high, I thought, I need to figure out how to have my own brokerage, because that is where the money and the freedom is. That is when I set out to figure out how to become a broker. Chapter 4: The $10 Brokerage. As I set out to figure out a way to run my own brokerage, I had a couple of questions to answer first. Do I buy a franchise or go independent? What are the costs? What other training or licenses will I need? After it's all built, will I be able to sell it? While gathering answers to these questions, I made some interesting discoveries. Typically, the goal is to get your name on the sign out front, so everyone knows who you are. At that point, you will truly have made it. Or will you? The things I would discover over the next few months as I continued to dig for more information would surprise me. I hadn't gotten any closer to whether I would buy into a franchise or go independent. But with my personality, I was leaning toward independent. I had been with an independent broker for the last several years, and not one client of mine cared at all what brokerage I was with. So brand recognition didn't really mean anything to me because it didn't mean anything to them. As far as the cost and additional training went, it wasn't really a big surprise to find out that I would have to have a certain amount in reserves as well as obtain a new license for each state where I wanted to grow my business. Now, thinking about how I wanted to scale my business, I could see the costs and time racking up. This was going to be expensive and cost me a ton of time. This was my first roadblock. I was really having a tough time wrapping my head around accomplishing this goal. How was I going to build what I really wanted to build? The money was one thing, but the time? That was a completely different challenge. There is only one of me. But the financial and time costs associated with what I wanted to accomplish weren't even the biggest surprises. I was talking to one of my best friends who owns an independent brokerage, and he said to me, "Guess what? I just expanded into another city about an hour away." I said, "That's awesome, congrats. What did it cost you?" He told me that he purchased it for $10. Wait, what? Yeah, she wanted to give it to me, but my lawyer said I need to pay something, so we settled on $10. I asked, why the hell would she ever sell her brokerage for $10? He then explained to me that brokerages typically don't sell for much because you are essentially selling the agents that you have on your team, and their production can fluctuate. Another factor is that an agent can leave at any point. If they average 100 transactions a year with you, the new owner can't count on keeping them. They would be at a risk of losing those transactions should the agent decide to leave. This was the final blow for me. After learning that she owned her brokerage for 30 years and sold it for $10, I no longer had an interest in building my own brokerage. The $10 deal was great for my friend, but for the broker who sold her brokerage after owning it for 30 years, not so much. As I stated in Chapter 1, I want to leave a legacy. This wasn't how I was going to do it. Chapter 5. Now what? After realizing the associated overhead costs and risks, I knew that owning my own brokerage wasn't looking to be worth it. Not to mention that the fact that I could build something for 30 years and have it be worthless in the end wasn't something I was getting excited about any longer. Actually, to be fair, not worthless. I did sell it for $10. Even though owning my own brokerage was off the table, I still needed to leverage my time, money, and my business. For years, I, like many agents, was stuck in a single input, single output business model. Meaning that when I sold a home, I got paid. When I didn't sell a home, I didn't get paid. It was that simple. I worked once and got paid once, and this would repeat over and over. This contributed to the vacation intimidation I was talking about. If I was on vacation or got sick, there was no one there to work for me. I was 100% self-employed. And by that, I mean I was the only employee. It was completely up to me to produce. Then a mentor of mine told me this. "Brandon, would you rather get paid from 100% of your own effort or get paid on 1% of the effort of 100 other people?" Boom! Mind blown. That is when I realized I needed to find a way to get paid while I wasn't working. How could I leverage others' skills, time, and actions while putting them in position to succeed as well. This was going to be much harder than following the traditional methods of those before me, I thought. But I knew that this was what I needed to do. I needed to replace that single input, single output mentality with something more progressive. I needed to implement a single input, multiple output mentality. This mentality meant that I could be compensated multiple times for working once. For example, think of a musician or actor. They record a performance one time and get paid over and over again for years. Bands like the Beatles recorded songs in the 1960s, and they're still generating revenue today. So this got me thinking, how could I grow a team that also carried the mindset and duplicated it themselves? Now, I wasn't only thinking about how I could grow a team. I was thinking about how my team could grow their own teams. This would be a win-win for everyone. What I also realized in my research to start my own brokerage was that most brokers end up training their agents well enough to be able to produce on their own. After that, they end up going out on their own. So, in the traditional model, as a broker, you either limit the growth of your agents or you train them to become your own competition. But with what I discovered, you could build your agents up to be top producers, help them grow their teams, and they would stay with you to build something together. To build something special. This was going to be huge, but it would challenge traditional beliefs. And if there is one thing I know about the real estate industry, is that it's seriously deficient when it comes to exploring new ideas and implementing change. It has an old guard kind of mentality. Unfortunately, in the past, the real estate industry's growth has been limited by people blindly following tradition. Chapter 6. Tradition. I'm not saying that tradition is bad. Actually, tradition can be a good thing and usually is. Your family probably has a few traditions of their own. Hank Williams Jr. even wrote a song about traditions. Just Google family tradition. It's the first thing that pops up. But just because we have traditions, it doesn't automatically make them right. As we evolve, some traditions no longer apply, yet we try to force them to work. That's how we've always done it, you might have heard. The challenge with traditions is that they can significantly hinder your growth. For example, you might not try something different for fear of going against tradition. And if it doesn't work, forget about it. You'll never hear the end of it from those who originally doubted you. They'll be lining up to tell you, I told you it wouldn't work. Now, I'm not a religious person, but that doesn't mean I can't learn something from a religious book. Pastor Rick Warren, in his book, The Purpose-Driven Church, had this to say about growing a new church. Quote, "We've been able to experiment with far more ideas than the average church, mostly due to the fact that we didn't have decades of tradition to deal with." End quote. To me, he is saying that there can be a big advantage to not having traditions in the way of starting something new. There is no, this is how we have to do it. Think of Major League Baseball in recent years. The stands are empty every night. The purists want to preserve the game and care too much about stats and records, and the interest level continues to drop. The opposite of that is the National Football League. It is constantly changing and adapting and has never been more popular. When you are limited in the ways you can do something, the amount of possible growth shrinks significantly. But when you aren't bound by those limitations, you can experiment with infinite ways to grow. Your potential is increased exponentially. Don't get me wrong, sometimes tradition can be good, especially when it comes to family. But in business and personal development, it can interfere with our goals. I am not saying that we abandon tradition altogether, but we need to also keep an open mind when new ideas present themselves. We must keep experimenting and not let ourselves be limited by the chains of tradition. Chapter 7: Opportunity. Another way that tradition hinders our growth is that it can blind us to opportunities that are presented to us, making us feel like we can never catch a break. The reality is that the opportunity was right there for us to act on, but our focus on tradition kept us from being able to see it. On one of my dad's recent trips to visit us, we were driving around and I asked him what were some reasons that he thought might keep people from achieving their own success. One of his answers was opportunity. Interesting, I thought. Did he mean the lack of opportunity? So we started discussing what we thought qualified as an actual opportunity. What made a certain event an actual opportunity? Was it simply something that happened by chance? The right place at the right time type of thing? After some discussion, we agreed that there was more to it than just that. We decided that there were three basic elements to opportunity, with chance being one of them. These were our three elements. Number 1, the opportunity presenting itself. Chance. Number 2, recognizing the opportunity presented. Number 3, being prepared to act on that opportunity. I believe these are all of equal importance. Obviously, you need the opportunity to present itself, but if you don't recognize it, it might as well have never been there. The same goes for being prepared for it. If it presents itself and you recognize it, but are not prepared for it, you can't act on it. That would be a missed opportunity. For example, a few years ago, I sat in the same room at the same table as a friend of mine at one of the most amazing charitable events I'd ever witnessed. Since then, he has hosted many of these same events, bringing in tens of thousands of dollars in donations to his local community. We both saw and recognized that same opportunity at exactly the same time. The difference was, he already had an established network and the funds needed to host such events, and I didn't. He was prepared for it, and I wasn't. By possessing all three elements of opportunity, he was able to take advantage of it when I wasn't. I really missed the boat on that one. I know we all have different upbringings, journeys, and life paths. And no, I'm not that naive to believe that everyone will get the same opportunities or even the same amount of them. Some may get better opportunities than others, and some may get them more frequently than others. But I do believe we all get them. It just depends on if we can recognize them and are prepared to act on them. Chapter 8: Ego. Now that we have discussed how tradition can blind us to the opportunity, let's talk about the most egregious culprit holding us back. And that is ego. I have seen ego-crushed dreamers and believers because they couldn't get out of their own way when they thought they knew better. I was once asked to write down the reasons why I had yet to take action on something I had believed in. I wrote these three words: fear, embarrassment, ego. I immediately realized that the fear of being embarrassed would lead to a hurt ego. And honestly, even admitting this out loud has me feeling a little embarrassed right now. But what I also realized is that I'm not the only one to feel this way. I mean, who am I to think that I'm some special unicorn and the only one that carries these limiting beliefs? I remember a couple years ago sitting in the crowd at a packed Tony Robbins event and hearing him repeat over and over, "real original," when someone would explain their unique situation. He did this as a way to show everyone that they were not alone. Think Like a Freak is a book written by authors and hosts of the Freakonomics book and podcast. In the book, they lay out a scenario where you are a soccer player lining up for a penalty kick that will win you and your country the World Cup. As you make your approach, you analyze the data to decide which way to kick your shot. You think, should I go left or right? Then you realize that you have a 7% higher chance of conversion over kicking to either side if you just shoot it straight at the center. Statistics show that 98% of the time the goalie will dive one way or the other, only remaining in the center of the goal 2% of the time. What is interesting, though, is that only 17% of penalty kicks at the elite level are aimed at the center. Now, why? If it is statistically the highest percentage shot, aren't more shots going there? Simple. Fear, embarrassment, ego. If you shoot to either the right or left and it is blocked or misses wide, no one will fault you. That's what you're supposed to do. But if you shoot it directly at the goalie and he doesn't move and blocks it with minimal effort, you look like an idiot and you suck at soccer. The fans will be sure to let you know. Even though, statistically speaking, it is a higher percentage shot, there is the public perception that it's a terrible idea. So, you are more likely to sacrifice an increase in probability to make it in order to reduce the chance of embarrassment for trying something unconventional. The same goes for business as well. I am in an industry that touts practicing very low converting strategies and tactics that haven't changed much in decades. If you fail at these, then that's okay. You will be told, it's a numbers game, and you get right back out there and knock on another door. But if you travel outside of the road that has been paved for you and try something new, you'll have opened yourself up for ridicule if it doesn't work. The result is, you settle for the road with minimal risks for judgment. While it feels like a much safer road, the rewards also become minimal. When you handcuff yourself with that mentality, you do reduce your risk of failure, but also you significantly reduce your opportunity of exponential success. Whenever a new opportunity presents itself to you, refuse to pay the fee. FEE. The costs are high when you give in to fear, embarrassment, ego. This could quite possibly be the most important chapter in this book. This chapter will help you decide if you're ready to move on, if you should just close this book now and continue with what you were doing before, or press on and put yourself in an incredible position to succeed. As we discussed earlier, I mentioned that after thinking that I wanted to be a broker and having those dreams crushed because of the $10 sale of a 30-year-old brokerage, I was on a mission to find some way that I could change my single input, single output business to a single input, multiple output business. Well, I found it. I found a way to grow my team like a broker while eliminating the overhead costs and risks and building it internationally. So the rest of this book is for those who have gotten to the point in their career that it is time to step up to the next level. You are looking to be a team leader, go out on your own, or become a franchise broker. I promise that what I'm about to share with you has the ability to change your life. But I need you to promise me one thing, that you will answer these questions honestly. We have established that we all at some point want to be brokers or own our own brokerage, right? In that case, we would all be a broker. Emphasis on the E. Well, when we have that brokerage, what do we have to do to build that brokerage and stay in business? Right, we need to attract and recruit agents. Emphasis on the G. So, in order to be successful brokers, we will recruit agents. And the reason that we want to be brokers is that we want to be owners or have ownership. Correct? So, just to recap, this is what the old guard wants you to believe. When we want to be brokers, emphasis on the E, we will have to recruit agents, emphasis on the G, in order to become owners, emphasis on the O. Can everyone agree with that? So, for the remainder of this book, I'm asking you to remove your EGO. Brokers, agents, owners. Remove your ego while you learn the ideas presented to you, so that you don't have to worry about appearing right, so you can stop worrying about being correct. Can we all agree to do that? Great, let's move on. Chapter 9. Understanding the old model. Just like anything, in order to grow into something new, you will have to know what you were. This is no different. To best understand where we are going, we must understand where we have come from. I want you to think about this for a second. The real estate model that most agents are plugging into right now was built before the internet was invented. Yet not much has changed in the way that model operates. For the most part, all companies, up until recently, have operated the same exact way. And almost all of them still do today. You start with an international company, the main brand that you are representing. That international company then divides itself into regions. These regions are then sold as franchises to owners who take on all of the risk and liability of being an owner of their selected territory. At that point, the franchise owner must hire a manager and staff in order to recruit agents to join and grow the franchise, which in turn grows the company. The modern-day challenge with this model is the need for brick-and-mortar locations. This brings unnecessary costs and liability that significantly cut into profits. Those profits are coming from the sales of the agents on the front line. Their hard-earned commissions are being sent to pay the brokers, the franchise owners, the regional owners, and the international company, as well as paying for the rent and utilities of the physical offices. In the past, this was a great model, and while it was just fine before the internet, it has definitely served its purpose. But now, it's just outdated. Why is it outdated? Because now that we have the internet, we have never been so connected with our clients. We can meet them for the first time or show them homes through a video conference call, even if they're in another state, taking them on a virtual home tour. We can use our computers from our cars, and we can meet clients in a coffee shop. I know some agents will say, it's not professional to meet in a coffee shop. To that, I'd say, it's not professional to waste your client's time by making them come to an office when they don't have to. Let's be honest, unless you are in an office in a tourist location like the beach, people are not just walking off the street into your office to buy or sell a home. How are they finding you? Once again, the internet. We have tools available to us that we never had before. Why do we continue to fight the advancements in technology? Remember the chapter on tradition? This is exactly what I was talking about. When people want to fight change because it's not how they do things, this mentality will get you left behind. The industry is going to grow with or without you. You are the only one that can decide if you are going to grow with it. Chapter 10. Mindset. In addition to removing your ego, you are also going to need to be aware of your mindset. I want to talk about two main mindsets that you will likely have to possess in order to have continued success in this industry. There is a reason that so many don't make it. I can make a case that those who don't make it share a certain mindset, and those who do make it share another mindset. Mindset number 1, short game mindset versus long game mindset. Unfortunately, the majority of real estate professionals are playing the short game. They are only interested in the now. They haven't given much thought to anything other than what they have in escrow or where they are getting their next client. They seldom look at what their business will look like 5, 10, or even 20 years into the future. This, in my opinion, is why they have so much trouble with change. Things are working fine the way they are. Why change it? I am always intrigued by agents who tell me that they won't give up a split because they already make 100%. The reality is, you're not making 100%, but keep telling yourself that. I actually spoke with an agent recently who was paying over $12,000 per year in fees that they'll never get back, mind you, at 100% broker. They looked at me like I was an idiot because I give up 20% per transaction up to my cap. With a short game mentality, they were right. Giving up 20% seems like a bad idea, but if you pan out just for a moment and look at the long game, you will see that even though I give up 20% of my commissions now, I will collect well over 100% of that amount in saved fees by the end of the year. Most agents cannot grasp this concept because they are solely focused on what do I get now. So when they see that they have to give up 20% initially, their mind just shuts down. Mindset number 2, employee mindset versus business owner mindset. Unfortunately, most agents fall into the employee mindset category. Now, this isn't entirely their fault. A large number of agents who get into the industry were previously employees, not business owners. Including me, I was an employee when an agent came in, grabbed me from the workforce, and put me in a position to fend for myself. I went from someone telling me what to do every day, and it's something I didn't have to think about, to someone who had no real training on what to do as a business owner. In my opinion, agents and brokers collectively have to assume some of the blame for agents not having an owner mindset. It starts with managing expectations. When I got into real estate, the agent who approached me said, "You'll make 6 figures, effortlessly." After being in the industry for over a decade now, I would say that my expectations weren't quite managed after that statement. It hasn't been effortless. Quite the contrary, actually. The difference between an employee mindset and a business owner mindset is described as simply as this. In a restaurant, the way for a server to make more money is to serve more tables. That is no different from a real estate agent selling more homes. It is more work for more money, again, single input, single output. A business owner looks at that same restaurant and adds more tables and maybe more servers to leverage his existing business to increase revenue. That is an example of single input, multiple output. In order to leverage your existing business, you will want to have a business owner mentality. This will help you realize the true potential you have at your disposal. Chapter 11. Quote, I didn't know. End quote. Why most real estate agents are stuck in a single revenue stream business model. As real estate agents, knowing can be the difference between having a successful career and being squeezed out of the industry like so many others. Unfortunately, when we don't know things, we don't get to use the excuse, "It's not my fault. I didn't know." That excuse doesn't magically wipe away or bring back the opportunities that we missed out on by not knowing. Recently, I played softball in a novice co-ed league. Nothing serious or competitive, really about the lowest level you can play. After the game, I sat with my buddy John in the bleachers and we watched the next game. As we were sitting there, the field director and a representative from the Softball Association approached us. "Do you know whose bat this is?" "No, why?" We had remembered seeing it in the dugout but weren't sure whose it was. They went on to tell us that it was an illegal bat to use in this league and the punishments were severe. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, an illegal bat in a co-ed, novice league, big deal. Honestly, that's what I was thinking too, but when they explained what would happen if someone was injured from it, it definitely was a big deal. You see, in an attempt to make the game safer, certain bats, due to age or the material they are made with, have been outlawed because the ball comes off of them incredibly fast, making them more likely to seriously injure someone. Only bats with approved stamps may be used in these leagues. You might be surprised by what could happen to you if you use an illegal bat and it causes an injury. The person using the bat, the umpire of the game, and the field director will serve a minimum 2 to 5 year suspension and up to a lifetime ban from the association, which spans across the country. On top of that, depending on the injury and the player who was injured, you could be facing legal action. It doesn't matter if you knew the bat was illegal or not. Now, how scary is this to think about? You haven't played softball in years, and a coworker asks you to come fill in because they're a player short. You dust off the old glove and you head out to the park. You're excited, after all, you haven't played in years. This is going to be fun. It's your turn to hit, and since you haven't played in so long, you don't have a bat of your own. So you randomly reach for one and head to the batter's box. You take a swing, and before you know it, the pitcher is on the ground. He had no time to react because of the speed with which the ball came off the bat, and he's injured. Now he has to leave the game, and the umpire asks you for the bat you just used. Now this is standard protocol whenever someone leaves the game because of an injury due to a batted ball. As he looks it over, he informs you that it was an illegal bat. Unfortunately, you are now responsible for what happened regardless of whether you knew it was illegal or not. There is no pleading for ignorance. You don't get a pass or do-over for not knowing. The same could apply in real estate. Most agents only know of one way to generate revenue. That is, to sell more homes. The reality is that there are plenty of revenue streams that are available to us as agents. It's on us to seek them out and apply them to our business. There are very successful revenue streams available to you right now, and by not asking the right questions and finding them, you are serving your own suspension. It's up to you to decide for how long. Will it be 2 to 5 years? Or even a lifetime ban? Maybe you take action and stop it today. You must ask yourself, am I okay with not knowing how to leverage my business? If yes, keep doing what you're doing. No need to dig further. If you're unhappy not knowing how to leverage your business, now is the time to start searching for answers. Answers that will put you in a position to achieve long-term success. Don't let your business suffer by missing out on an opportunity after opportunity that you aren't aware of simply because you didn't know it was available to you. No more "I didn't know" excuses. Chapter 12. Why having multiple revenue streams is a must for all real estate agents. Most real estate agents have become accustomed to a commission-to-commission lifestyle, based on their business being built on only a single stream of revenue. Unfortunately, this means that they are unemployed between each closing. Again, this isn't entirely their fault. In most cases, this is all they have been taught from the beginning of their careers. The challenge that this model brings is that an agent can easily find themselves in survival mode, leading some of them to questionable decisions made out of desperation and ultimately forcing them out of the industry they were so excited to be in. When you don't have anything in the pipeline and you are living deal to deal, you can easily become desperate, and you may find that your values and beliefs are challenged. As a real estate agent, it is never fun stretching commission checks from month to month. This is why it is so important that as agents we learn to leverage our business. Multiple streams of income can offer us more freedom and peace of mind, limiting the struggle of the daily grind of just selling more homes. I, like most others in the industry, was solely dependent on sales as my only source of revenue. As I began to educate myself on the importance of multiple revenue streams, I started to expand my business. Since adding the most significant revenue stream yet, I've been afforded the luxury of time and freedom, and worry much less than I did when I was relying on only one source of revenue. I really felt it in January of 2019. I had a buyer who was due to close on their first home. They had mixed emotions because although they were very happy to be buying a home, they weren't technically employed at the time, which is a pretty big qualifier for getting a loan. The circumstance was this: we were just waiting for the verification of employment in order to close, which wouldn't have been a big deal, but they were a federal employee, and well, our government was shut down at the time. There was no one to take the call to confirm that he still was employed there. So we had to delay the closing. Of course, they were extremely disappointed and nervous. In addition, I had just spent months working with this buyer who at that point might or might not get into their new house, which in turn meant that I might or might not get paid for all the work I had put in. We have all been in a similar situation, one that we have poured our blood, sweat, and tears into only to find out that the result is completely out of our control. Luckily for me, I had previously added a revenue stream by leveraging my existing real estate business. This allowed me to collect a monthly income regardless of the status of this home or any other that I had in escrow. And because I had partnered with real estate agents in British Columbia, Canada. That revenue stream alone was enough to pay my mortgage for the month. Again, bringing me peace of mind. Adding this revenue stream to my business has also allowed me to have the freedom to be more selective with clients and relieved me of chasing new leads down, begging and bugging them for business. If you haven't yet, I strongly recommend digging into which additional revenue streams you can add to your real estate business so that you can leverage them to your advantage. You owe it to yourself to start thinking like a business owner and not just a real estate agent. Chapter 13. The simple trick real estate's top producers are using to create additional revenue streams. As I've mentioned a couple of times, our industry typically has a natural progression for the life cycle of a real estate agent. A new agent will typically join a brokerage and, in some cases, join a team. After they gain some experience, they may move away from the team and be on their own, or they may get assigned to be a trainer with a fancy title. When they graduate from there, they may decide to become a team leader and eventually a broker, either independently or buying into a franchise and/or getting into property management. Being a broker or working in property management can be lucrative, but it also carries high overhead costs and risk, not to mention the amount of your time it can eat up performing low-income producing tasks and, in some cases, being a glorified babysitter. The worst part of all is that you are extremely limited in your growth and the growth of the agents you've recruited to join your brokerage. I, like most agents, once had aspirations to become a broker. After all, it was the next natural step that many before me had taken. But the closer I came to actually realizing that dream, the more I realized how broken the model was. I really didn't feel it had a chance to hold up in the long term. The industry and technology had been quickly changing the way business was performed. It seemed inevitable that the old model would eventually lose its relevance. That is when I turned to real estate's newest revenue model. With this model, I was going to be able to grow a team like a broker, attracting quality agents while eliminating the high overhead costs and risks previously associated with being a broker. More importantly, I have now been granted the opportunity to help my agents' partners grow exponentially as well, creating the ultimate setting for massive collaboration, something I have never seen before in this industry. I have been able to do this all without the limitations of physical borders, allowing me to grow a team throughout 9 states and into 4 provinces in Canada. The best part, it didn't require any special licensing, designations, or courses to get started. And in the meantime, I just continued to sell real estate. Without a doubt, applying this one concept to my business has not only changed my life, but it has changed the lives of my agent partners as well. I have found a better way to run my business, and it has changed my life. That is why I'm so passionate about sharing with others. Some will get it and some will not. Either way, it will not deter me from my path to share it with others. My goal is to simply introduce it to those who are looking to grow their business exponentially. Are you looking to grow your business exponentially? Chapter 14: How Residual Income Helped Me. First, we must know what residual income is before we can really understand how to use it and where to find it. Residual income can also be referred to as passive income or royalties. I spoke about this briefly in Chapter 5 when I mentioned that musicians and actors get paid for years and years after the initial work they put in. They don't have to play a song each time they wish to get paid, but they do get paid each time a recording of their song is played. Residual income can be best described as income that is made after the initial work is done. It can be made by other people or other things that are working even when you are not. Most people will look directly to property investments and rentals to provide residual income for them month in and month out. The challenge with turning to these residual income producers is that it typically takes a large initial investment to start seeing any return, which most people don't have. The residual model I'm talking about is an investment strategy that any real estate agent can start leveraging today. The best part is that the sky is the limit as far as financial compensation is concerned. You can build as big as you want, all while you continue to run your existing business as you always have. Now that we have an understanding of residual income and how it can help you exponentially grow your business, I'd like to share a couple of stories of mine that will give you a better understanding of how it applies to real life. The shutdown. Remember my client who was a victim of the government shutdown? That was really my first taste of the power of residual income. And I have to tell you, the amount of stress I avoided during that transaction was incredible. I didn't have to worry about not being able to pay the mortgage because, if you remember, the team that I had built in Canada was able to produce enough to keep me covered. This is when I knew that residual income would forever be a part of my life. There was no reason not to have it be part of my business plan. My son's battle with anxiety. On October 29, 2019, I dropped my son off at school by walking him to the gate and watching him run to the playground. It was just like any other day until he turned around holding a single finger up as to say, "1 second, Dad, I have something to tell you." He ran over to me and said, "I can't go in, Daddy," with tears rolling down his face. I didn't realize what this was eventually going to become, and quite honestly, I wasn't ready for it. From that day on, he only made it to 3 full days of school until we got shut down completely because of COVID. It turned out that he was experiencing anxiety at quite a high level. This required me to sit with him at the school office for hours at a time or sometimes bring him home while I tried to work. I'm sure you can imagine how difficult it was to put in a full day of work. And as you probably guessed, as the hours I was able to spend working went down, my own production went down with it. I mean, when you are working no more than 2 hours at a clip, it's a little tough to get in a groove. This went on for 4.5 months. But you guessed it, because I had leveraged my business to create an additional revenue stream. My mortgage was covered regardless of the amount of homes I sold each month. I know you can relate to this one. COVID-19 hit and basically shut down almost everyone's ability to do business as they had before. Many were left without the option to do open houses, and in some cases around the country, they were not even allowed to show a home. Many scrambled to figure out what they were going to do to keep their business alive. The biggest hurdle here is that when your business is solely based on your production in your area, you become a prisoner to your market. You are at its mercy. That is why I chose to expand my market by partnering with agents in other markets so that I could thrive even if my local market took a hit. That strategy proved to be a success, as some markets were operating like nothing happened. Even though I was in one that put some restrictions in place, I was able to capitalize on the residual income that was being produced by the agents that I had partnered with. Once again, the mortgage was covered. Think about that. I was getting paid because I leveraged my existing business in a way that didn't require me to sell more homes or be a prisoner of my market or personal production. Now think about this. What would it mean for you to have your mortgage or car payment taken care of every month? Or maybe it is a vacation that you'd want to go on but couldn't afford. What would it really mean to you to be able to have an additional stream of income that is working even when you aren't? All you have to do is leverage your existing business, and it's easier than you might think. Chapter 15. Pay it forward. As we talked about in Chapter 1, legacy is very important to me, and I knew I wasn't going to leave the legacy I wanted just by selling homes. But this, I could share with agents all over the world and help them create a business and lifestyle that they never thought possible. They could take their current business, and by making one simple little switch, they could leverage their business like never before. To date, I have helped change the lives of over 200 agents and their families in 10 states, 4 provinces, and counting. I often get messages from these agents thanking me for giving them the opportunity to grow beyond their previous limitations. Like I said, just selling more homes wasn't going to do much for my legacy. But giving people the opportunity to get control of their time, to enjoy with their family and have a feeling of freedom for the first time in their career, now that is a way that I can leave a legacy. The best part is, you can do exactly the same. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to do the math and figure out that it is possible for anyone. I'm living proof I am no smarter or better than anyone else. So if I can do it, you definitely can do it. And I can show you how. The willable asset. Another amazing benefit of using this strategy is that you position yourself to leave what you've built to your children or other loved ones. Remember Chapter 4, the $10 brokerage? When you build something for 30 years and realize that it's basically worthless, it comes as a gut punch. But if you're strategic about it, your family can benefit from your hard work for generations to come. Chapter 16. Interested in leveraging your existing business yet? Now is the time to ask, what are you going to do? Before listening to this book, you may have had the excuse that you didn't know what residual income was, or that you didn't know that you could make it just by continuing to sell real estate. But now, you don't have that excuse. You are now aware of residual income and how you can change your life and the lives of others with it. The only decision left is this. Will you take this new knowledge and act on it, or will you let it pass by? Now, I get it. This isn't for everyone, and it may not be for you. I respect that. But I'm sure you know someone who this would be perfect for. So if this isn't for you, please share this audiobook with someone you think could benefit from it. Trust me, they will thank you for it. There is a new standard in the way real estate transactions and compensation plans are structured, and we've already seen changes happen. Don't get squeezed out of the industry because you are afraid to adapt. We are on the ground floor of something special. And I want to personally invite you to join me on this journey. Are you ready to change your life? More importantly, are you ready to change the lives of others? I think you're ready. Chapter 17. The Inviter. Although I think you are ready to take this step to add to your existing business, you may be saying to yourself, I don't think I need this. I just want to sell more homes. To that, I say, please keep selling homes. After all, we are real estate agents, and that is what we do. We sell homes, and quite frankly, without home sales, this model doesn't work. In fact, without selling homes, no real estate model works. And you might also say, but Brandon, I don't know how to build a team. I'm not like you. I'm not sure where to start. Also a valid point, and I know exactly how you feel. I felt that exact same way when I first started building my organization, which is now over 200 agents strong. I didn't think I'd be able to do it either. It just seemed so overwhelming. But what I have found was that it was just like recommending a product to someone or inviting them to something. Have you ever recommended a movie or restaurant to someone? Or even invited them to a party? Your answer is likely yes, and you probably do this more than you even realize. Another question is, have you ever been compensated financially for your recommendations or those invitations? That answer is likely no. What if I told you that the model I'm speaking of does exactly that? Financially compensates you just for recommending it and inviting others. This allows you to become an inviter who has the opportunity to be responsible for the positive changes in the lives of countless others. An inviter who, when people say or hear your name, their face lights up and they feel incredible gratitude that you have come into their lives. I know this to be true because I am fortunate enough to have these types of interactions with multiple people who thank me for inviting them to join me, and by doing so, changing their lives. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because it's true and it is something that is solidifying the legacy I plan to leave behind. You too can start creating a legacy today, and it starts with just one invitation. It will not only change your life, but the lives of so many others. All because you were brave enough to go first. All because you chose to be an inviter. Thank you so much for your time and listening to The Semi-Retired Real Estate Agent by Brandon DeVere.